Support for Audacious with Chion Wolf provided by a generous contribution from Suzanne Hopgood in memory of Frank Lord.
From Connecticut Public Radio in Hartford, this is Audacious. I'm Chion Wolf. There are moments in life that split everything into before and after. For James Tillman, his before moment began with the smell of dinner coming from his mother's kitchen. Then came the sound of the police at the door, and then questions, and then an accusation, then a trial, then the word guilty, and then a 45-year prison sentence. But he was innocent. Still, James Tillman spent a total of 18 and a half years incarcerated before DNA evidence proved he did not commit that crime. In 2006, he became the first person in Connecticut exonerated through post-conviction DNA testing with the help of Karen Goodrow and Brian Carlo of the Connecticut Innocence Project. Later, DNA identified another man, Dwayne Foster, who confessed in 2010. Beyond this being a story about a wrongful conviction, it's also about what it feels like to know the truth when the court, the prison, and most of the world outside your cell decides not to see it. Today, James talks about refusing to plead guilty, surviving years of disappointment, finding faith, and after being released, learning how to breathe again. With him is Katie Farrell, Chief Social Worker for Connecticut's Division of Public Defender Services. She helped him prepare for the possibility of freedom when it was not at all guaranteed to come. This summer marks 20 years since James Tillman was officially exonerated, and all this time later, his story asks us, what can we do to prevent wrongful convictions from happening? And what do we owe people when our justice system gets it catastrophically wrong? I asked James to bring me back to the moment before everything changed, and just a warning, James's story includes mentions of violent crime, including rape.
I don't know if I could say it was one of the worst days of my life or one of the best days of my life. I mean, I look at things now as I'm still here. And I'm here for a reason. And I think you go through things in life, and maybe I could have been avoided, but it wasn't. And it happened.
When the police knocked on the door, I don't know if knocked is the word, but where were you? What did you smell? What did you see? What was your body like at that point?
I was downstairs, and my mother was cooking some steak. And I was like, I'm going to get me some steak because my mother could cook.
I believe you wrote in your book onions as well.
Yes, the onions and the
Don't
steak.
leave the onions out.
Oh, my God. And then she called me, and I came upstairs, and that's when I was let out the house. And, I was like, I'll be back, I do remember getting into the cop car. I do remember going to the police station. I do remember being questioned. And the officer did say to me that I had assaulted this woman.
What was your reaction to that?
I never assaulted this woman. I don't, And they did a photo array on me. And she picked my picture out of the photo array. And next thing I know, I was being arrested, and I was like, dang, I'm not going back home to get my steak, I got to go to work the next day, I'm like, it's just new. It was like, and then I was like, okay, they'll get to the truth. So I goes over to Morgan Street. That was like one of the worst jails, real tight cells with two people. Like both people can't stand up at the same time and be in that cell. One of y'all got to be on the bed, one of y'all, because that's how tight it was. And then it was all bars. And they kept me there for I think I stayed there for I never forget this. I stayed longer than everybody else. Normally they send you over to Morgan Street, where it's much nicer, But they kept me over there double the amount of time that somebody else would stay. And maybe it could have been because I had a rape charge. And I knew one of the lieutenants, and I said, Lieutenant, why am I still here? Because his mother stayed in the project that I was from. And he said, let me check into this, right? Because you've been here too long. And he went and checked into it, and then he got me over to, but I knew it seemed like it was purposely, because of the treatment. And then I remember being in jail over there, and I just still couldn't really, and I started being around guys that had rape charges too. So I'm like, I wonder, did he do this crime? I wonder, did this guy do that crime? I wonder, did that guy do that crime? And they used to ask me about my case, and I was like, nah. I'm not telling you about my case. You know what I'm trying to say. I just didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel safe. But I just always used to look at the guys that had the rape charges like, which one of these dudes did this crime? Because I didn't do it. And as time went by, I was like, okay, when am I going to trial? And my lawyer said he's going to do DNA on me because it was new. He said, I'm going to do DNA. And then when I get to trial, he never do it. Then when the Danny Webb case come, where a lady get killed and she get raped, and now it's all over the news, and they arrested him, and now they run me to trial. So I was kind of like, other black man kills executive in Keeney Park, shoots her. And then I go to trial. I was like kind of afraid to go to trial then because I was like, the public like, okay, here's a guy right here. He got a rape charge. And I felt like I was going to be a victim. I felt like I was going to be targeted. But I still went to trial.
At this point, how much of you is feeling like, I know I'm innocent. I know the system's not perfect, but it's the best we've got. Chances are I'm going to get through this. I'm not going to be put away because I know I didn't do it. How much of you felt that way versus how much of you felt like, oh my God, anything could happen?
Well, here's a country, right? Imagine we didn't have military to protect us. How would we feel as citizens? I didn't feel like I had backing. I didn't have security. I didn't have fairness. I didn't have none of that.
So you were bracing for possible worst case scenario.
It was happening to me. It's like one thing after another. Why it takes so long to go to trial. Do my lawyer believe in me? No. They gave me some numbers that, you should have took. I would have been out. I think some of the numbers they gave me to cop out,
To plead guilty?
Yeah, to plead guilty was great numbers. I mean, I think I would have been out in 6 months or a year, if I would have pleaded guilty.
Why didn't you plead guilty?
Because I didn't commit the crime. So, I had told myself already, and my friend had said, man, I'd rather see you do another 6 months or a year and have you free with a rape charge on you than see you locked up. And I said, I know you love me because he was my next door neighbor. And I said, I know you love me. And that was love. But at some time, you have to be your own person. And sometimes you have to stand up when no one else is going to stand up for you. And sometimes you have to just say to yourself, I refuse to tell a lie. And that was one time that the crime was icky. And I just didn't want to be affiliated with that crime. Like, some things in your life you just don't agree with. That was one of the things I did not agree with.
There was no deal too strong or too tempting for you to put that on your name.
They could have gave me time served and I still wouldn't have. And I told the judge in the police pre-sentence investigation, I said, sir, I'll do 100 years before I plead guilty to this crime. So when he sentenced me, he said, well, I'm going to give you half of that. I'm going to try to give you half of that. He seemed like, even in trial, that I didn't have a chance. Like, he seemed like I was just a black guy and she was a white woman. And she said, I did it and I'm going to jail.
When you heard the word guilty, what went through you?
I really kind of knew it was going to be a guilty. I did. Because you could just see that my lawyer was against me. The judge was against me. The jury seemed like it was against me.
And on that jury, there were no people of color.
None. No. And that's one of the things I used to fight for, like the jury array, because you need that. You know what I mean? And I understand when you have people that don't live around me and they see that young lady and they looking at her like, this is my daughter, you know. And you the guy they got on trial that hurt a person that looks like my daughter. I'm going to try to keep your butt in jail because I don't want that to happen to my daughter. But maybe if we have more people of color, maybe they can see me as their son. And maybe their son did not commit this crime. Like, look at me like, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, whatever, look at me like I'm your son or your brother or your uncle. Give me the fairness that you would want them to have. And I knew I didn't get that from the start. And there was nothing physically but her eyewitness testimony that was actually linking me to this crime. And also, oh God, I understand the judge had to give me time because I'm found guilty. The highest charge was kidnapping, I think at 25 years. If he would have said to himself, okay, I'm going to give him 25 years, just in case we're wrong, and I'm going to run everything concurrent. At least we got something out of him if he did the crime. But he just knew that I was the one because of the sentencing. But at the end of the day, it didn't matter anymore because I knew I didn't do it. And it was just a fight I had to fight. And I just said, well, just do the best you can. And that's what I did.
What was prison like?
There was no McDonald's. There was no Burger King. There was no Wendy's, no Subway. There was no steaks. There was
no onions.
No onions from the steak. There was nothing, no clothes, just brown, that tan outfit every day for 18 years. Tan top, tan bottom, tan top, tan, just tan, all tan. Like that was one thing I didn't realize that had bothered me so much, like to have to just wear. It was like the punishment was already given to take me off the street for a crime I didn't commit. But I felt like I was being kidnapped by the government of the United States. I never called myself a convict. I called myself a POW. I was a prisoner of war because I was at war, fighting for my life against my own country. I wasn't under the Constitution. I felt like I wasn't under the protection of the United States. I felt like I was just dragged out of my house and I was put in prison. That's how I felt. And up there, I kind of like gave my life to God. And then I just started looking at things a lot different. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to live the way God want me in here. And that's what I decided to do after about 15 years of being upset. But, you get tired of just being mad and, of the system, mad at you had disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. You didn't, just so many different disappointments over your appeals. And that was the best thing I ever did for myself. And I still love the Lord today. That's my faith. And I try to do the best I can. We're not perfect out here. But life is always going to be a struggle to fight to be good and be kind to people and just try to be the best you can be, And I guess some of my social skills, I think that kind of fell back a little bit. I don't know. It's like sometimes, can I trust them? Could I trust this person? Could I trust that person? But as somebody and like meeting Katie here was a blessing because I think she understood me when she first seen me. And I think God sent her to me. I really do. And she's seen times when I when we was fighting to get me out, and she was showing me signs like, breathe, James, breathe. And I was like, can I get out of here? Like, am I going to leave? And I'm just standing there and I'm like, I just want to go home. I just want to get out of here. I just want my freedom. When is it going to happen? I gave my DNA. What else do you need? And they said, somebody at the forensic lab was like, why is he still in jail? Like, they said, we had one more little test to test. And they was like, yeah, but the other test proved that. Most of the tests proved that's not him. So that's enough to overturn the conviction,
This is probably a really good time. Katie, I would love to bring you into this conversation. Will you sort of pull back and talk about how you got into James's life? What was happening? How did that connection get made?
So I have been working as a social worker on defense teams in New Haven. And Brian Carlo was one of the attorneys, and he and Karen Goodrow were the attorneys for James. So he said, we're at this really crucial point in the case where we have tracked down some evidence that was never tested. So we want to tell James about it, and then things are going to move, and they might move slowly, but if they can test new evidence and it turns out it's not him, he's going to get out. So the tricky part is, as James is talking about, he's been in jail and he's had all these disappointments. And so my role was to go in and try to do some supportive counseling. So they brought me in to talk with James. And I was amazed when I met him, like absolutely struck with how calm he was and how much his faith meant to him. And I feel like you counseled me through, I think, sometimes more than I counseled you through.
No, you counseled me, believe me.
What were you expecting?
I think I was expecting anxiety, frustration, really someone being on the edge, someone who had it. I would get that a lot under, the role that I had and people looking to me to, you have to fix this, you have to take care of this. And that is not the person I met. I met somebody who was calm, who said, okay, so what are we going to do together? I mean, I hope I get out. I don't want to get my hopes up too high, but what do I have to do? And I had a tricky job of talking to James about, okay, so now we have to talk about what if you get out? And we don't know if you're going to get out. But what if you do? Where would you live? So then trying to work on the plan for afterwards, not knowing that there was going to be an afterwards. And that's when you said to me, I'll tell you what this is like, being a lion in a cage, and there's a stake just out of my reach, and I'm trying to reach for it, and I need it, and I'm salivating, and I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't get it. And so then we started talking about breathe. And that was our thing, that when I'm not here and you're sitting and this anxiety really builds and it looks like it's going to be a reality, but you've been so disappointed, breathe, and say that over and over again. And when we finally made it to court, I stood in the door behind the judge with a sign that said breathe. Right?
You did.
Yes, because
I needed it.
And this was 6606. This was the date that you didn't know until this date that you would, on this date, be released. Can you summarize how they finally realized you were innocent and let you go?
When Karen and Brian, they was fighting because the judge was like, well, I think we're going to do a continuance. And I was like, a continuance? Like, I was like, oh no, that's when she started putting the sign up. Like, I was like, I gave away all my stuff. I'm ready to go. Like, literally ready to go. I ain't have nothing. I handed the inmates everything. I was like, I'm getting out of here today. And Karen, every law in the law book, she threw at the judge, like, and this case versus this case, and this case versus that case, and this case. But I mean, she seemed like, I looked at her and I was like, golly, I could breathe now, because that's the time I felt like I had the military on my side. Like, I felt like I had the whole Army, the National Guards, the Navy in that room. Like, this lady, like, and her and Brian, it felt like I had people that really believe in me, that really cared about me, that really given me the same equal everything. I just finally felt like I was alive again, like I was somebody, like I was worth bringing out of prison, saving. Now I feel like here's some genuine people here that God helped them get through law school, helped them get through college to become who they become. Nice people and people that care about people. People don't look at your race, look at what gender you are, but just look at you as a human being, and that we want to help you because this is what we do. And that's how I felt.
And Karen Goodrow was so persistent. She was unbelievable. That's how the evidence was found to begin with, because the chain of evidence and how things are stored now is not how it was back then. So literally, right before I became involved, they found a box with clothing in it that was in a closet in a storage area somewhere. I don't even know where it was.
And I thank God that they paid for the storage. Legal aid paid for the storage for over 15 years.
Right. And so Karen tracked it down.
And she tracked, and it was still sealed in the box that they placed it in their storage for that long a period
And they
of
were
time.
able to test that with modern technology, which exonerated you. When the judge basically said, "You're free to go," what was that like?
At first, it was like, I'm getting out of here, right? But it wasn't a total vindication because all the charges wasn't dropped yet. But I take it. I walked out and I said, now I'm free. Now I can fight even harder now. So I can kind of like move a little bit. I'm better than just being in a cage. I got a chance. And I felt that the team that we had around us, you know how they say faith can move a mountain. It's like I had the faith and I had the people that God put around me. But I still was out here and I was walking. Like, I didn't even want to go down to the corner by myself. I don't know who's out here. I don't know. I just don't know what's going on. I don't know if this person that was brutally raped, I don't know if she got family members that still think I was the one. So my mind is always, because I'm always on survival mode, whereas people wouldn't think of that. I'm going to think of it because I don't underestimate society anymore. I don't underestimate anyone anymore. And then we finally got me exonerated. Now I can like breathe now. I mean, I can breathe again.
You could breathe, but then the work started to try to deal with the trauma, right?
Yes.
One of the first things we did, we went to, was it McDonald's?
No, we went to Dunkin' Donuts first.
Dunkin' Donuts, right.
We went to Dunkin'
But
Donuts.
someplace that we went, maybe it was later on, it was like, for example, so you are looking at, am I safe out here, right? This is it. Besides the fact that it's so many years later, technology is different, everything looks different, the neighborhood looks different. But maybe we went for a hot dog another day.
Yeah.
Wherever we were, the beeper on the French fries, to the alarm that it's done, sent you almost into a panic attack. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Because, and I said, what's going on? And it's because it sounded like when they were opening
the doors and stuff.
The doors in prison.
It just seemed like all the little noises that you hear in there. And it's like, I heard people get out of prison. Oh, prison this, prison that, glorifying jail. And I was like, no, you lose everything. You lose everything.
That was James Tillman. 20 years ago, he was exonerated after serving over 18 years for a crime he did not commit. When we get back, how does James feel about the woman who wrongfully accused him?
I forgive her. I already been in prison. I'm not going to put myself in another prison.
I'm Kyone Wolf. This is Audacious. Stay with me. This is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf, and we're back with James Tillman and Katie Farrell, the Chief Social Worker for Connecticut's Division of Public Defender Services. James spent a total of 18 and a half years incarcerated for a violent crime that he did not commit. So just a heads up here, James's story includes a mention of rape. James was exonerated in 2006 by DNA evidence and the advocacy of Katie and the Connecticut Innocence Project. But what happens after exoneration? Where, if anywhere, does the anger go? What does justice mean when so much time is lost? James talks about how he makes sense of the rape accusation, the man who could have come forward and taken responsibility for the crime, and the settlement he received from the state.
I keep hearing in your story this combination of like slow motion whiplash and fast motion whiplash from the day that the police came and took you away to being convicted, getting the sentence, the slow motion whiplash of adjusting to prison, the attempts at getting out, of proving your innocence, of that falling short, and then a constant state of whiplash to some degree. And I also think about how, after all of this is said and done, and we're speeding forward a little bit, you were given a $5 million settlement. Is that the word for it?
I think that's what they call it.
So you, and then you toss that in. How did you feel about that amount of money? And what did that feel like to get after all this?
Well, I felt like it should have been a lot more money, but I also felt like, why should the people of the state have to fund the state's wrongdoing? Connecticut paid out a lot of money to wrongful convictions, and they might going to pay out a lot more, and it comes down to let's do things a little more carefully, and let's protect the taxpayers' money because that's where it's coming from. And then you got to look at the fact that 20 years, me being incarcerated, how much money did the taxpayers pay already for my incarceration every year? So, what are we doing as a state to try to protect people more? And that's why I go and I fight with different states to try to get DNA laws put in other states, so that people could have a fair shake, on life if they're accused. Because DNA is so powerful now. It's like DNA is kind of like the truth. It helps victims also. And it stops other people from becoming victims too.
When you think about the woman who was assaulted, what comes up in you?
There was a woman that could have been my mother, that was brutally raped, beat up, and that could have been my mother. And my mother could have got it wrong. Would I want my mother to be forgiven? Yes. And that's how I look at it. Maybe she thought she had it right. I don't know. But only her and God has to deal with that. I'm out. I'm free. I'm not the one. You know what I'm saying? So whatever if your intentions was, let me just get some black guy. It was a black guy, but let me get this black guy. Somebody going to pay for this. Maybe the anger brought her to that, and I don't know. But I forgive her for making the wrong choice. That's between me and God. I'm forgiving. I have to forgive her. She never asked me personally to forgive her, but I'm just letting you know that I forgive her. Life goes on. I'm not carrying that around with me. I've already been in prison. I'm not going to put myself in another prison.
They did find the man who committed the crime. His name is Dwayne Foster. He was charged in 2008 based on DNA evidence, and he confessed in front of a judge in 2010. When you first heard the news, how did you react?
Well, I knew before everybody else because I was working for Capital Region Education Council. Matter of fact, I was doing fingerprints, trying to keep people sexual assaults from getting into our schools and stuff. But when the detective came and over to my job and showed me the picture and said that that was him. But it took almost 2 years. It was surprising to see that because, I was upstairs in East 3. We was upstairs together.
So you knew him while you were
East 3.
incarcerated?
Yes. We was all upstairs together. We played basketball together, but I never knew he had any rape charges. I knew other guys up there did. We are from Hartford. Hartford is very small. People know of each other, but I just never would ever think that was, I'm just glad because there was some people still had their resolution about me being free. And, like you say, it's 99%, but a lot of people thinking, maybe, maybe DNA is wrong. But that kind of like put the 1% to rest when they found him and he confessed.
He could have come forward at any point in time and saved you time and pain, and he didn't. What do you make of that?
I mean, if a person is raping a person, what do you expect from that person? I think she deserves not to be raped. So I don't expect nothing because look what you did.
You've brought up your faith in God as something that was transformative. And also, it sounds like you're saying that this relationship with a higher power offered you a profound sense of surrender, even though you knew it wasn't fair. I wonder now that you've been out 20 years, what your relationship is like with forgiveness now, how you even define it.
I'm free now, right? And I'm getting older now, and time don't wait on anybody. And the life that I have now is so precious. It's just so precious right now. It's like a lot of people are passing away, and the funerals are just more than before. And, I just look at it today as just like, just live today and be forgiving and just, God has blessed me. He has blessed me. And the biggest blessing that I have got was my freedom, and my mother, she's 87. She's still here. And, I have my lovely wife here and grandkids. And I found out I have a daughter.
Congratulations.
Yes. We don't have the relationship, but I'm praying on it. I'm praying that one day we do. She found me. She really fought, and she was 42 years old when she found out. And then I got out and I found out I had another brother down south. I had a niece. So it's like life is like so many different. Life is good.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I just want to make an observation about your openness and your courage, and from where you came when you came out of prison, to be able to relax and have your own sleep schedule for a while, to not be able to go into get a hot dog, to now being so present in your life that you're traveling and you're open to helping others. It's impressive. You are a strong, strong person.
Oh, I'm not too strong, Katie, but I was helped. You guys fought for me. You guys,
You also did the help.
but y'all put yourself on the line for me. You guys could have went on and they could have got their own practices and they didn't have to help the innocent. They could have went on and did other things, but they chose to help people. And I just wouldn't feel right if I'm out here and you guys fought and did this for me, and now I'm just sitting around and thinking that it's that way. No, I have to give thanks to you guys for what y'all done for me, and I know how it feels to not have anyone out there to help you, and I don't want nobody to feel that way. I want people to feel like there are people that's going to help you. When things go wrong, people come together and try to make it right.
Over the 20 years that you've been in each other's lives, Katie, I wonder how he's changed you.
Well, he has, that's for sure. I mean, you changed something in me from the first moment I met you because of your sense of peace and faith and how human you are. At your most scared, at your most anxious, you were able to ask for help. I'm always amazed that you're still able to talk a little bit about how things still affect you, how unfortunately prison's still with you in some ways, but then you forge forward. It's very inspiring to me. You are an inspiration to me.
I think it's important to talk about the fact that, of course, there are people incarcerated today who are innocent. Studies by the Innocence Project estimate it could be between 2 and 5% of all prisoners. When you think about these people who are serving sentences for crimes they did not commit, what do you hope for them?
Well, why do we have to just focus on the ones that are innocent? How about the ones that committed the crimes? How could we better serve our community by helping people to not commit crimes and to set up something so that we can find out why this person did this? Some people commit crimes for different reasons. People lose hope. And when they lose hope, they do crazy stuff. So how do we not let people lose hope? Look at the percentage we can stop from going into prisons if we make changes in our society. Look at what we can do to stop people from going to jail. There are ways we can make people and give them a fair way so they can be proud of themselves, proud of their family, and not want to go to jail and not want to make the wrong decisions.
That was James Tillman. In 2006, after over 18 years incarcerated, he became the first person in Connecticut exonerated through post-conviction DNA testing. He's joined by Katie Farrell, Chief Social Worker for Connecticut's Division of Public Defender Services. After the break, James shares a moment he'll never forget, which led to an even more beautiful moment.
And I looked at him, and he just took my whole spirit, and it just went to the floor.
I'm Kyone Wolf. This is Audacious. Stay tuned. This is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf. After serving a total of 18 and a half years behind bars for a crime he did not commit, in 2006, James Tillman became the first person in Connecticut exonerated through post-conviction DNA testing. No one would have blamed him if he decided to try to leave the past behind and live out the rest of his days in privacy, but instead, he went to work. He's taken his story to law schools, legislators, forensic labs, conferences, churches, anywhere people make decisions that determine whether the truth gets told or buried. His message is both practical and moral. Expand DNA access, compensate exonerees fairly, and stop making innocent people wait half a lifetime for justice to catch up with reality. In 2016, James traveled to Washington, D.C. for President Obama's State of the Union just weeks after the Wrongful Convictions Tax Relief Act was signed into law. The act ensures that exonerees like him would never again owe federal taxes on awards paid to them for being wrongfully convicted. James also wrote a book, co-authored with Jeff Kimball, called The Power of Conviction: My Wrongful Conviction, 18 Years in Prison, and the Freedom Earned Through Forgiveness and Faith. And he joins me today alongside Katie Farrell, the social worker who was part of the team that helped guide him through the long, uncertain road home. I wanted to go back to that last ordinary moment in James's life, before the police came, before the trial, before prison, before DNA evidence finally revealed the truth, when he was relaxing at home, smelling the steak and onions his mother was cooking. If he could go back in time, what would he say to the version of himself who had no idea what was coming?
I mean, there's nothing I can say, to be honest with you. I mean, like you said, what happened. What can I say? I mean, could I fight? I'm going to fight the cops. The wheel was already in motion, right? They had a suspect. They was coming for me. Whether or not I can tell myself any type of lie I want, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that's being pursued. I'm the one that's being brought into questioning. I'm the one that's being arrested. I'm the one that's, all this is taking place. So what could I
You're
say?
also the person that survived.
Yeah.
True, because they said the truth will let you set you free, but I didn't expect for it to take this long.
The DNA set you free.
I'm like, gee,
I want to.
DNA is the truth.
DNA is the truth. That's true. We're coming up on when we should be wrapping up, and so I feel like I could talk to you all day for this. And I know there's so many things we couldn't cover because time is limited. But is there anything that you want to make sure you say?
Just thanking everyone still today. I love them. Karen, Brian, Jerry, Katie, just thanking everyone. I'm still grateful. I mean, today it don't feel like it's been almost 20 years, to be honest with you. It really don't, because the part of my life that was lost, like the 20s, the 30s, and part of my 40s, them was like years that you kind of miss. Like, them was years that growing, you get to grow, you get to, you know what I mean? You get to decide what you want to do, and then it was like going to college. At first day of school, I started crying because I never thought I'd be here and out. And I was with Mr. Scheinberg, who runs Goodwin University, and I just broke down crying. He said, "Go ahead, James. I just got emotional. I'm sorry, but I did." And I was just grateful, and I was just so happy. I was trying to, get an education that I think I should have had at an earlier age. And that's why I said there's a lot of moving parts that we need to move people towards, at an early age, and those that's less fortunate to try to reach out and see could we keep stuff from, because once you start moving stuff and you start helping people and start doing things, I think we can stop a lot of stuff that's going on and stop people from becoming violent. And because you could see what's going on, how many school shootings we done had over the years. I mean, this is crazy. Do we ask ourselves, what are we doing as a society are we motivating this, or are we going to look at it and say, let's see what can we do to try to stop some of this? What can we do in the schools to help the kids? What are we doing? Is it stuff we giving them that's creating this? Is the gaming, or what is it?
Katie, anything you want to add?
I'm always reflecting, especially after I speak with James, about the work that we do. In Connecticut was the first in the country to have social workers on our defense teams. And little by little, it's happening around the country. And it is so important for people not to end up with us. But I think we're working so hard to see the defendant as the person, not as their crime. That's the number one thing we teach people. In the role that I'm in now, we've done a lot of work with the legislature to try to put things in place in all different aspects of the criminal justice system to try to make opportunities for people to not continue in the system, but to get out of the system. But it takes everyone. So the work that you're doing is amazing. Hopefully I'll be continuing to do some of that too, because it's so important.
It really is.
Yeah.
Will you tell me about a pinch me moment in your life when you looked around and you thought, oh my God, I never in a million years could have thought life could be this glorious?
When I was in jail, I told you I gave my life to God, and I was in church, and the pastor was out. He was out of Hampton, Connecticut, and he told the correction, "Hold up, I want to talk to James real quick." And I had just had a good day in there, and I was praising God, and I was feeling good. Even though I was in jail, I was at peace. And he said, "James, when you get married, get to know her for about a year or two." And I looked at him, and he just took my whole spirit, and it just went to the floor. I'm saying to myself, I ain't getting out of jail. What is he talking about? I'm locked in here. All my appeals are shot. What is he doing? Why is he telling me that? Like, I get back to my cells, like, oh man, I just felt like, why did he do that? I was good. I had my joy. I had everything going. I was good. Why did he give me that? God, I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have a wife. I'm never going to have, it's never going to happen. And then it happened. That was my Prince Me moment. And me and my wife went back to him in his church, and we got married at his church on Christmas Day.
Oh, my gosh.
And he said 6 people that he was trying to get married in that church got married right after us. That was my pinch me moment.
What's her name?
Bridget.
What's she like?
She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. When she started to watch the jail movies and, like the people locked up, I said, oh, she's the one. Because I guess she wanted to understand what I was going through. And it's been 18 years, so that was my pinch me moment, is when me and her got married, and I was like, wow, this, and then all that came back with the pastor, and I just found myself in the church, about to have a wife. I was like, what's going on here? Like, is this for real? Like, that was like, never thought that it would happen. But it happened. And that was, to me, like, wow, God, you're good. You ain't, I see you was working through him to let me know something that was about to happen. So that was my moment.
Quite a gift after what you went through.
Yes. Yep.
You were amazing, both of you. Thank you so much for still saying yes and trusting us and this beautiful team especially Jessica, who has done, Jessica knows like your mother's maiden name and blood type is how she's researched you completely. So I deeply appreciate Jessica. You trusting us and coming back to Connecticut Public. That it means the world. So thank you.
Well, I like Connecticut Public. I used to watch this on TV. Yeah, I had the only channel when I was down in Virginia at Wallens Ridge. They moved all the Connecticut inmates, and y'all was the only channel. I learned so much from this channel, right? It was like, whoa. like I watched bridges be built, and, with the CPTV, that's the same, right?
Yeah.
And I watched bridges be built. I watched.
We were there for you?
Yes,
Good.
I was.
We better be. Awesome. We better be.
Very educational.
Thanks.
Very educational.
Audacious is always lovingly produced by Jessica Severin DeMartinez. Meg Fitzgerald is the Senior Manager of Projects and Radio Programming, and Robin Doyon-Aitken is the Deputy Director of Storytelling at Connecticut Public Radio in Hartford. And special thanks to Assistant Director of Radio Operations, Dylan Reyes. You can see portraits of James and Katie by Ryan Karen King at ctpublic.org/audacious. Deep gratitude to the late Bob Meredith of the Connecticut Innocence Project, who first connected us with James and Katie. For another intimate story about incarceration and the long road home, check out our episode following Mike West. He was a first-time nonviolent offender from Uncasville, Connecticut, who allowed us to document his life before, during, and after a year in prison.
The best day here is still a day in prison. So I'd much rather have the worst day outside than having the best day inside here.
It won an award this year from the Connecticut Society of Professional Journalists, and you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. Stay in touch with me on the socials at Kyone Wolf, and you can always send an email to audacious@ctpublic.org. Peace.